The Habitsville Planetarium will change your life. At least that's what the latest Yelp review says. There's a 5-star rating, pun not intended, just unavoidable, but not a single word in the space of a description. It is, surprisingly, the only available review for the facility. I'm not looking into the planetarium because I'm bored, or to know more about space, or because I'm looking for a cliche first date spot. My sudden interest in my town's planetarium is rooted in a phenomenon that I've been tracking for the past 3 months or so, ever since the Habitsville Planetarium's grand reopening 6 months ago. The population of Habitsville has decreased by 1 every month, every second Friday, at 7 p.m. I know it may not seem like a lot. 1 person dead or gone a month could be considered low for a big city, but Habitsville is a small town, where everyone's known everyone since they were born, and no one ever leaves. Since I'm not on a big story at the moment, I think the newfound trend requires my attention. The planetarium, up until 6 months ago, had been closed to the public for as long as I've been alive, but after recently acquiring some new funding, anonymous funding, as far as I can tell, they are now able to reopen to the public. And every second Friday night since, at 7 p.m., I've seen it. The count on the town of Habitsville's official website, right under population, ticks down by 1. I won't begin to go into the details of my journey to find the human being that actually updates our town's website. It involves an incredibly long and perilous internet search, a day spent wandering around town, and eventually a fake address that led to an abandoned warehouse. But I know it's not a glitch in the system. People that I've known all my life, constants in my day-to-day, are just gone. Another one of my coworkers at the paper, my favorite waitress at the best restaurant in town, a guy I went to high school with. They've all disappeared. 1 a month for the past 6 months. And what do they all have in common? They all purchased tickets to the Habitsville Planetarium for the highly advertised Friday night special, A Night Amongst the Stars. So there I was, second Friday of the month, 7 p.m., sitting amongst the crowd in the darkened planetarium. I was nervous, to be sure, although I knew that it didn't make much sense. It was more of a hunch than any sort of hard evidence. There was still something frightening about being in the same place as the 6 people who had seemingly vanished off the face of the earth. There was a large crowd, which wasn't too unexpected. There are limited things to do in our small town, so people will take what they can get on a Friday night. It had tiered seating, dim lights on the walls. The main difference was the screen. It was magnificent. Rather than a flat display directly in front, it was a huge glass surface that stretched from the floor in the very front, over the heads of the audience to the back. It was curved at the edges and reflected the little light in the room. It must have had some sort of glass coating over it, like a television screen. There was a family seated in front of me. A husband, wife, and 2 children. The kids were already impatient with their outing, and were bickering and smacking at each other as each parent tried their best to pretend it wasn't happening. When the boy let out a particularly loud squeal, the father snapped. "Jamie, cut it out now," he said gruffly, grabbing the small boy's wrist and pushing his arm roughly back towards himself. I winced. I had seen this sort of parent before. Both children settled. The boy rubbed his wrist gingerly, and giving his father an approachful look. "Tim, don't be so rough with him," the mother said, though her voice wasn't exactly forceful. "These kids act like animals," Tim muttered. He looked impatiently around the room. "When is this thing gonna start anyway? I've already had to take a leak." The woman sighed. "Be patient, hun. I'm sure things are going to start up soon." The man sat lower in his chair for a second. A few moments passed in silence. Then the kids started tentatively playing again. When one smacked the other a little too hard, causing their sibling to let out a loud wail, the father stood up. "That's it! Going to the bathroom!" Then he walked out of the theater, leaving his wife to comfort his 2 small children. To be honest, I was thinking about going to the bathroom before the show started, but not wanting to run into Tim, I decided to stay put. It was a good thing I did. because a few moments after he left, a voice spoke through the speakers surrounding the audience. "Good evening. The Habitsville Planetarium's very special event, A Night Amongst the Stars, is about to begin. Please silence your cell phones, sit back, and enjoy." There was a sound when the intercom turned off, a weird gust of air. I didn't pay any mind, thinking it was just the announcer's breath against a hot mic. I did as I was told, and soon the lights began to dim even lower. It was completely black above us, and a hush quickly fell over the crowd. I looked up at the great impressive screen before us, but for a while, nothing showed up. Then something odd happened. There was a moment, only a second or so, when the entire room felt strange. It was like that sensation as you're drifting off to sleep, where your mind begins to travel into dreamlike, illogical thoughts until suddenly you're jerked awake with a confused mind and a pounding heart. I looked around, trying to see if anyone had just felt what I had. But then the screen turned on, and my attention was turned elsewhere. It was beautiful. The view was quite literally out of this world. It was different from the common way that we viewed space. Flat, lifeless, a black background dotted with spots of white. There was so much depth to it. The sense of eternity, of true infinity, is usually so out of reach to humanity, and yet here it was, displayed before a crowd for a small fee of $10 per head. Even the children in front of me had calmed down, their tiny heads tilted upwards, eyes reflecting the swirling designs of stars and dust that now filled their view. A calming female voice reverberated overhead. "Welcome, citizens of Habitsville, to the Kuiper Belt, located just outside the orbit of Neptune. This collection of icy asteroids is thought to be remnants left over from the very creation of the solar system." As the voice spoke, the view on the screen drifted lazily through the pieces of rock and particles that floated by weightlessly. Then the camera tilted slightly. It was strange. It was as though I could feel the tilt deep in my stomach, like watching a video from the point of view of someone on a roller coaster. Our bodies experience phantom sensations based on what we're looking at. That's what this was. Right? Coming into view now is the dwarf planet, Haumea. There on the horizon was an entire planet. It was oddly shaped, not like the usual planets that you see in photographs or in sci-fi movies. It was unusually flat, like it had been a sphere until some giant hand came and smashed a fist down on top of it. Little is known about Haumea. What we do know is that it has an unusually elongated shape. It has 2 moons and an incredibly short day of a mere 4 hours. It is the fastest spinning large object in the solar system. If you look closely, you might be able to see the thin ring of debris that orbits the planet. Once she mentioned it, I could see. It was a wide circle around this huge rock, which was spinning so fast I could actually see the movement. The bits and pieces in the ring weren't slow either. The entire entity had the feeling that it was whizzing by, vibrating with some unseen energy. As we crept closer, I felt something strange. There was this deep rumbling at first. I thought it was the air conditioning of the planetarium, but as the film grew nearer to the planet, it grew stronger. I could feel it through my feet on the ground and my back against the seat. And then I heard it. Scrape. The audience's heads turned to the right of the theater. There had been a distinctive sound this time, a sharp scrape coming from the wall. "What was that, Mommy?" the small boy in front of me asked his mother. "Nothing, sweetie," she said, though her face was lined with worry. Because of Haumea's distance from the sun, it has a temperature of negative 241 degrees Celsius, or negative 402 degrees Fahrenheit. As the video passed through the last of the rocks that made up the ring, the rumbling I had felt deepened. It now reverberated in the hollow of my chest, and I could even feel it in my teeth, and then straight! We all turned our heads to the left this time, as the squealing sound of metal being bent resounded from the other side of the theater. The children had shrunk down in their seats now, obviously frightened, but this time their mother offered no words of consolation. Since Yumea's discovery in 2004, there has been no sign of life on the planet's surface. Until around 2 years ago. Scrape! The sound came from behind us now. We all twisted around to face the back, but only saw the back of the planetarium. My hands were shaking now, both from the heavy rumbling that was making it very difficult to hear the voice over the speakers and from my own fear. Then I saw something. It was a large black shape. It traveled from the top of the screen overhead to the bottom at the very front. It was so quick it could have been a flicker of the film, but it didn't take up the whole space. And when it reached the front, we heard it again. Right there at the start of the theater. Straight! The following presentation is rated R. Viewer discretion is advised. We turned back around. Our attention turned to the sight in front of us. I heard the sound again. Not the scraping or the rumbling. That suction I heard at the very beginning, right after the speaker announced the start of the show. And then the woman in front of me screamed. Soon I saw him too, there, floating up and outward from somewhere behind the camera, arms and legs floating gracefully around him like the tendrils of a jellyfish, was Tim. His body was limp and blue. And he made his way closer to the screen. I could see that he had a layer of frost and ice over his skin. He came so near the surface of the glass that I thought he might go off camera, but then he pressed against it. We could see him, sliding cold and hard against the curved glass like a bug caught on a windshield. His face was pressed against it now, his nose turning black at the end, a bit more pressure, and then the tip merely broke off, floating back against his body and joining the ring that danced around Yumea. The children and their mother were dumbstruck. "Daddy?" the small boy asked in a quiet voice. Then the shape came again, so fast and dark that I couldn't truly see it. I could, however, make out two distinct things. One, a long, scaled tail that dragged against the planetarium's surface with a terrible scrape. Two, the wet, gaping mouth that spread wide and swallowed Tim whole. Then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. The voice overhead spoke again, politely and calmly. That concludes the Habitsville Planetarium's Friday night special, A Night Amongst the Stars. Please remain seated until the lights come back on in the theater. And we have made our descent. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video. Or listening to tonight's podcast on the podcast, if you're listening to that there at Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you can happen to listen to podcasts. Also, I just want to take a quick second to tell you guys about HorrorConVR. HorrorConVR is actually a horror convention that I'm putting together with a group of my friends who are YouTube horror creators and other horror creators and just sometimes VRChat creators and things like that. You can find out more at HorrorConVR.com or follow us on Twitter at horror_VR. It's going to be hosted on VRChat in October, and the best part is you do not need a VR headset to be able to join and play. So check out those places, join us on Discord, and we do meetups every Saturday, which is fun. And of course, I wanted to give a big thank you to everyone who checks out patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta and supports the show, keeps the light on, gives me treats for my now 2 cats, both Hylas and Hercules. Both of them are a handful. And especially a big thank you to Saha, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Mazikeen, Ken Lando Higuchi, Chompski, Nico kaeo, Tristain Pelton, Stephen VanHuss, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, G. Weevil 3, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Hades' Nephew, Carter Barenfanger, Dr. Strawberry, Jordan Wayne Deckard, Bradney Leipe, The Government Monitoring System, Ann Charron, rumblefox, AcidSystem, Mike Bullock, Rafael Rodriguez, Dan Sweet, Mad Marstomp, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Sean Mills, Brian Arce, Cryptic Nightmares, Shadow Morningstar, Somber Puppet, Brianna Wright, Someone You Love, Said the King 56, Bad Honey, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Patrick Schoolmeister, Thomas Burgett, Barbara Maceo, Bobby Carmen, Liam Newman, The Homeless Bird 93, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Last Blade Song, Eliminator 86, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, and Corey X Kenshin. A big thank you to all of you guys and everybody down there in the description. I really can't thank you guys enough for supporting the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody who listens, sweet dreams.